before I retired, I was a chemist. The chemist learns to live the life of quality control. Quality meant meeting a certain rigid standard. If you made widgets, you had to make every one of them so that it was exactly the same. But quality, when human beings are involved, is a very, very different thing. Quality is still there, but you don't have a reference standard because every individual is not exactly in conformance with a rigid standard. Every individual is his own standard of quality, and only that individual can define quality for himself.
People with disabilities have had to make their life with far less than most people have. And people with disabilities, by and large, have done a great job of making lives out of sometimes pretty awful circumstances. We just have begun to notice that people can make much more interesting lives if they have somebody who's listening to them, if they have people who are willing to be creative about access to opportunities and about support.
People focused on the idea of quality assurance, thinking that if there were changes, if the federal government was going to change things, one of the things that we needed in place was a way to assure quality for people.
Quality assurance is the one place where we can assure life works even if the money doesn't work.
In 1995, people with developmental disabilities, family members, legal representatives, advocates, service providers, and county and state representatives from the 11 counties in Region 10 of Minnesota held a meeting to discuss the service system for persons with developmental disabilities. A priority was to assure quality of services to persons with developmental disabilities, despite whatever changes were made at the state or federal level. Region 10 stakeholders worked with area legislators to develop and pass legislation that would allow counties to participate in an alternative licensing system that would focus on quality outcomes of support providers versus minimal licensing requirements. Presently, 5 out of the 11 Region 10 counties are participating in the process.
We were struggling with the current licensing process, especially my provider colleagues. We were having difficulty in terms of understanding why the licensing process did not include more directly the consumer, the individual that we were supporting. As a result of advocating through our stakeholder process in Region 10, we talked to legislators and we were encouraged to do something about it. As a result, we're working on a process that would become more person-centered.
And that's because it's focused on the person, not on the system.
There's a strong commitment to recognizing that people with disabilities have to be part of the process, that it can't simply be people who represent them.
Each of us have our own aspirations, our own desires, our own needs as a person, and if we do not have a system of public supports that honor those aspirations, those needs, that individuality, then we are not going to produce quality in that person's mind. So in a lot of ways, the individual consumer defines what quality is in their lives.
We had all sorts of ideas. We had all sorts of people with very strong opinions. People said, what we need to do is start fresh and design what we think things should look like. We're not going to tweak things that are already there. What we need to do is start new.
The process developed became known as VOICE, which stands for the value of individual choices and experiences.
VOICE is a process of talking with a person and the people that are around the person, and that's what we call their quality circle. We use VOICE as a quality assurance process to make sure that the person's getting what they want, need, and hope and dream in their life. We also use it in a licensing sense to come in and see how the supports are for a person. Instead of coming in and looking at files, we talk with a person and let them tell us how things are in their life. We make sure that we're hearing all points of view through their quality circle. We do use 2 quality assurance team members to keep each other, we say, basically in check with what your biases are. One real good quality is just listening. It's important to be able to listen to what each circle member has to say and keep an objective point of view on it. I get a lot of feedback from other people, especially providers. When you go into a voice review and they hear the positive feedback that they get and they see the process and how positive it is and how person-focused it is, they can use that in their day-to-day workings and really make a difference for people.
Whenever I see problems in somebody's life, I usually call and ask quality assurance to look at some type of a voice review or possibly request one, and I think that's a wonderful way to get people on the same page and start talking through some of those issues. When you have a team coming in and really looking at things, it's not just, a few minutes of looking at a file or asking some staff questions. It's, you meet with every team member or family member, you meet with the person, you visit their work site, you visit their home, and you get a really strong picture of what their life is like.
This process now says, in order for you to get your license, the people who use your service have input into deciding whether you're a good provider or not. Who better to say that you're a good service provider than those people who you serve?
Patrick loves the out of doors, being out in nature where, it's quiet and hassle-free. I see lots of me in my son. He's very stubborn. He doesn't like being told what to do. He hates the word no, likes his privacy. He gets very attached to people. He's got an eye for beautiful women. People make a profound impact on him, and he doesn't forget them.
Some of the most important things in picking individuals to work with Pat is a sincere interest in working with Pat. I look for people that are genuinely caring and genuinely believe that Patrick is wonderful as he is, not looking at him as a disabled individual, but respecting the needs that he does have.
He is my boss. He is the one who sets the rules, sets the tone for what the environment is going to be. We do have to step in and, make sure that there's those safety issues, but ultimately he makes the decisions, and if he doesn't want me around, then I remove myself from the situation. If he wants to see me more, I make myself more accessible to him.
It's been very difficult at times to know how to support him, and he's by and large been very patient with our struggle to try and figure it out. In the back of our mind, and certainly in the back of my mind, was the notion that, there is going to be this magic point where our son is going to be normal, and that meant that he was going to conform to this little picture of him that I carried around inside my head that defined normalcy in my terms. Patrick today is a 33-year-old man, has a full head of hair, which obviously he couldn't have gotten from me. His dark brown, he has beautiful brown eyes. I have come to know my son as a very warm, sensitive person. He's very inquisitive. He loves examining things, taking things apart, seeing how they work. He is a very talented artist. When he gets in the mood, he does watercolors. He really has taken to his own home, enjoys being part of his community, enjoys not being singled out as much as he used to be. I have 7 brothers. They're all like I am, large men. We're loud, we're aggressive. The vulnerability we have is our children. We can take enormous shots to the body and the head and all that kind of stuff and to our egos, but if you attack our children, that is extremely painful for us. A very essential ingredient in Patrick's life is freedom. And I define freedom to be that ability to choose from the same array of options that everybody else chooses from. When he moved into his own home, he shops at the co-op. He buys organic food. Pat, let's go out here and shuck some sweet corn. I'll just go through the cupboard and his health is improved. He went from this puffy individual, back to a healthy person. Quality for Patrick is having control of his food, and now he's making some real choices that he wasn't getting before. Another very important determiner of quality for Patrick is, of course, the relationships that he has with people. Quality of life in terms of your home means you get to determine who comes in and out of those doors every day, not some agency over here.
Patrick has a very good relationship with his father, but as John has often said, he'll walk into the house, here at the house, and Patrick will just look at him and say, "I don't like that." And John will be like, "Okay." And he turns around and walks out. It's Pat's house. If Pat doesn't want his dad here, that's his choice,
And that's huge to him. When I acknowledge to him, "Okay, Pat, I know you don't want me here. I'm going to get out of here." He has control of his space finally, and he's in charge of that. He's gotten off of programs. We don't have programs in his life anymore. He's not in a fishbowl anymore. His needs haven't gone away, but our ability to approach them in a more personal, more respectful fashion has meant a huge difference to him.
In the 40s and before, if you were a parent and gave birth to a child with a disability, it was not uncommon to be told to not take that baby home from the hospital, to place that baby in an institution, to pretend that you didn't have him or her and that they weren't another family member, and go home and have another baby. And there were parents who did that because they didn't know that they could do anything else. There weren't any services for them. There weren't any other choices for them. And then there were parents who said, "That really does not fit for our family." They started their own programs, and particularly moms. Moms at home started taking care of each other's kids. They started providing education on their own. They started little day activity programs. Their children were not allowed to go to public school at that time. And so then those parents started getting a little savvy and went to the legislature and started working on developing systems and some legislation to allow services and systems to happen. There was a mentality that now the provider is in charge. Now the provider is making the choices because you as a parent have given up your rights to make those decisions because you've asked somebody else to care for your family member. Then we started saying, wow, people don't live in homes of 160 people. Let's start making homes that are closer size to what other people live in. Then there was a mentality that providers had an opportunity to develop homes, and so they did, and they would set up a home and say, wow, I've got a home that's going to have 6 people, who can we fit in there? And then we started saying, my family member needs a place to live, but that 6-person home isn't what will meet their needs. We need something different. Then we started shifting to that mentality of, let's take a look at what the individual needs and find a way to provide that support.
No longer is it the professional saying, this is what you need. It's more the individuals themselves with the self-advocacy or their families that are saying, we know what we want. We need somebody that's going to do this for us. And to me, it's a natural progression that they're going to be involved with all major decisions around providers. And our providers are savvy enough and they want to do what's best for that person. They're going to listen to them. And they've been listening for a long time. It's just now we have, at least in our region, a means for licensing to also reflect that as well.
You cannot deny the power of a grassroots movement. There's always the bottom-up and the top-down model of how things can work. The best thing that you can do is move forward with what you think is the best possible program or system or idea, and keep pushing, to get other people to agree with you. And, when you do encounter disagreement, if you reevaluate, your own assumptions, your own beliefs, what you hold, and you can improve it based on that and still keep moving forward, then you've gotten even better.
Every once in a while, there comes an idea that is revolutionary. We went from improving institutions to viewing through the normalization principle a totally new way of viewing what was the role of people in providing supports. I think maybe that Region 10 is going to exemplify another revolutionary idea, that idea that government is somehow responsible for the quality of services and the quality of life of citizens with disabilities, to saying, no, it's the community that is responsible for the quality of their life. It's truly something of the community, by the community, and for the community.
Susan is 25, Down syndrome. She lives at home with us. She works approximately a 7-hour day.
I work at the laundry department of Cedar Valley. We fold some gowns, blankets, and sheets. Sometimes baby clothes too. I like working with my friends because they're there for me.
Susan is a very cheerful individual. She's very social. She has a lot of life in her. She seems to have a real clear idea of what community is, so she's an avid volunteer.
I was born on the 4th of July because I'm the firecracker baby.
"25 years ago, when we were told that Susan was Down syndrome, the information that was out there, it was very heart-wrenching. I didn't know what to expect. Our pediatrician had some very wise words to me when I asked what I was going to do with her. He looked at me and told me that I was a teacher, I should figure it out. And that's pretty much what we've had to do. We just have had the same expectations for her that we have of our other child. You raise your children to become independent, no matter what their abilities are. I've often joked that we've worked so hard to make Susan independent that she will go off and live by herself, and my so-called normal son will come back and live with me. When we were first asked if we would participate in this voice review, it reminded me of when we do annual reviews or staffings for special ed students through the school district. The difference was that they were also going to come and interview my husband and myself. My first reaction was, are they going to start criticizing my parenting skills? And I was very apprehensive. They talked to us about the immediate staff that were supervising her at the laundry. How did we feel about Eileen working with her? How did we feel about her coming and doing activities at this rec center? I really felt that they were well trained, if that was part of their training. They knew what they needed to ask, and therefore they could really listen to each thing as we described it. One of the things that came out of the review, when the ladies had interviewed Susan, and her comment was, well, my feet hurt. And so when they went back and they looked, and here it just so happened that the floor at the laundry facility is concrete, and she wasn't standing on one of those rubber mats. I mean, it's just little things like that came out. And so they put the rubber mat down, and things were wonderful. But it was like somebody listening.
Susan's voice review also found that she had a need for greater community involvement.
I was asked to work with Susan because her previous provider apparently wasn't giving her the amount of exposure to the community that Susan and her mother and dad wanted. Things were working for Susan, all her programs were working, but she was missing that community involvement.
To see her blossom has just been beyond what my expectations were. Having an education background, I know that a checkoff system just doesn't do it. You need to look at the whole person.
We continue to hear a lot of people that are very excited about seeing the progress and the work that we're doing in our 5 counties. And they continue to ask, why can't that happen for us as well? Actually, in legislation, any county within the state of Minnesota can opt into an alternative licensing system similar to Region 10. We know from our experience that's a longer process than a lot of people realize. It was 95 that our stakeholders started talking together, and it wasn't until 99 that they started to do an alternative licensing system. There was 4 years of really dedicated and hard work to do that.
It takes a lot of work to do it, but hats off to them because they do have that community engagement. If we could tap into that as a people, I think we'd be very well served.
What we're trying to do is bring what we've learned to other parts of the state, but help them realize that they need ownership of that, and they need to work to do it themselves.
Getting back to why is it or isn't it replicated, whether it's in other states or anywhere else, maybe people are just selling themselves a little short.
Darren and I met when he started into the Day Activity Center. That would have been about 1984. He's deaf, he's blind in one eye, but he has the neatest sense of humor. Darren likes to go. Go is one of his favorite things, and it doesn't really matter where. He likes to do anything, go anywhere, but he does like to stay busy.
I've worked with Darren at Possibilities, I guess the whole time that I've known him. The guy's kind of a perfectionist. I think it'd be important to know that he likes it done and done well. And he's also very good at working with his hands. We do a lot of clerical type jobs, assembly type jobs, where Darren puts things together and, anything that he can do to put out a product that meets his standards, and his standards are very high. Darren's not the kind of guy that's going to come and talk to you unless he needs something or wants something, and if you take the time to listen, he'll tell you what he wants.
Darren needs people who can do the things for him that he can't do for himself, and that's very few basic things. Darren's a very capable man. He needs people around him that can communicate with him. Communication with Darren is huge. If you can't communicate with him and you don't know what he is trying to tell you, he gets very frustrated. And then you see what we used to call, or some people still call, maladaptive behaviors. He rips things. He rips his clothes. He rips anything he can find. That's a sign of frustration. That means we're not doing our job.
The big thing that came out of the voice review was that the staff of his previous house were not able to communicate with Darren in an effective manner. They did not have the signing ability, and we're not making a major effort to acquire it. Staff makes all of the difference in the quality of life that people have. Darren changed providers and moved into this house after his last voice review. I think the ideas that came out of the voice review were pretty much what we knew we needed, and it was just a confirmation that we needed to pursue getting them. Darren has had problems with ripping things in the past, and that's much better under control. I think Darren is happy with his life now, and at an earlier time he wasn't.
One of the important things came out is that we weren't exactly where we should be in regards to knowing sign language, and as a result of that, we hired someone who knows sign language to help us out with that, and I think that was something that was real important.
My friendship with Darren first started out as I was just his driver, but then I wanted to become more involved, and so I got closer to Darren and made sure that he didn't fall through the cracks of the system. I started taking him out for rides with the van. I started eating lunch with him. Before, Darren used to be really frustrated. He'd come to work and he'd sleep all day long. Now he's well rested when he comes to work. He doesn't sleep. He's kept busy all day. You can see it in his face and his body. He's so much happier. He just seems more content. He knows he belongs here. And belonging means quite a bit to everybody.
Just in general, in terms of quality improvement, it's a matter of people thinking along the lines of not just, services are fine, so we're going to keep going, and problems come up every once in a while. We'll deal with those, get everything back to a place where nobody's really making too much noise, and we'll just keep going because everything works just fine. Well, first of all, are we sure everything works just fine? Maybe in the great majority of cases it does work just fine, but in those few where it doesn't, are we content with that? And I don't think we should be.
John and James are identical twins. We found out that I was carrying twins on Thanksgiving of that year. So we've always been extremely thankful for our sons.
Well, I think the first feeling I remember is shock, just complete and total shock. The diagnosis was delivered by a team of doctors at Mayo Clinic that had absolutely no compassion whatsoever, delivered as though they were reading the headlines in a morning paper. Told us basically they'd never read, they'd never talk, take them home and love them, but don't have much for expectations. That it really didn't matter what the doctors said. That was a medical diagnosis. That was what they thought. It wasn't what was going to be, and it wasn't necessarily what had to be.
I like to read Spider-Man, Daredevil. I'd like to read X-Men, Wolverine. I even like to read Thunderbird. And also I'm 13 like my brother. And me and James are twins. And we have a dog, a yellow Labrador. His name's Sparky. My mom's name is Jean. My dad's name is Don. His full name is Donald, but he likes being called Don.
They are bright boys, very interested in people. They're very, very creative themselves in their own special way. They're very dramatic.
I'm just here to say, this is a beautiful day, and this is a beautiful sun.
They love animals. They have a very close bond with animals.
We live on a farm of 62 acres. My grandparents bought it in 1937. It's been in the family ever since. I like the fact that one of my pastures is rented out for the last 4 years now to somebody who has longhorn beef cattle, and they get to watch the cattle and the bulls and the calves being born during the year.
Many, many people ask me if my sons were able to be a typical person without a disability, would I want that? And I say, like my sons have told us over and over, that they would never want to be like a typical person, that they are who they are, and they like being who they are. Our sons do not like the word disability. James wants to become a congressman so that he can change the word disability to ability gifts instead. What was really special about Voice Review was that more people were involved who are very important to John and James, and so because of that, more about John and James was found out.
And I do not want the other people to make decisions for us, because me and James should make the decisions ourselves with our family. It's like if the people make the decision for us, they're just being kind of nosy, it seems like to me.
Yeah, since when are they us? Yeah, we're our own person. Oh, they're just thinking, oh, they just have autism. We could take advantage of it. Yeah, right.
What surprised us, I suppose, or what got us excited, was the fact that John and James both became very self-confident because they knew other people were listening to them.
I like to go outside and play, and I like to read the Bible and comic books.
They got interested in comic books through my husband's comic book collection he had when he was a little boy. Putting them within their own comic book was really a very, very good way to get them really involved in the feedback and the final results of the voice review.
The Adventures of James and John Huebner, Superheroes.
James and John are identical twins and best friends. They have many things in common, but also have unique gifts and abilities. Together, they are able to tackle anything life has to offer them. When James and John are in a pinch, they can always rely on their parents to help them figure things out. Their parents are a very important part of their lives. And sidekick Sparky is a trusty companion. Always working to educate the public, James and John swoop in on the state capitol to advocate for people with autism gifts and other unique abilities. The world is full of opportunity for someone with James' thoughtfulness and analytical mind. John finds that reading, studying genealogy, and learning about the world sharpens his mind. Stay tuned for the future adventures of James and John Hubner to find out what happens next to our young heroes.
I work direct care about 20 hours a week. My role with James and John is I work with them directly, which is the funnest thing. The Music Man this year, when they acted in that was a big thing for them.
We're enjoying it very good. Yeah. I was excited about the play at first. It was good about the play. And the one who came up with the idea was my brother. He told me to come up with the play. I listened to him. Yes, he was a little nervous of what people would think, but we enjoyed the play.
It's good for, the quality of life to make sure that, they're getting what they want, not what everybody else thinks they want, which is very nice. It's person-centered more. It's, James and John, what would you like more than, hey guys, what should we do for James and John? It's more getting them involved in their lifestyle, making them more independent for the future.
The learning portrait idea came out because we have a lot of individuals with disabilities that don't know how to read or write. And you hand them a report and they're not going to be interested in it. So it didn't make sense to sit around a table and read a report. In the very beginning, we still did that, but then we also tried to give some sort of an item that would show this person's life in another way. And that's what the learning portrait is. It's basically an item that has a lot of analogies into it of what a person's life is and different pieces of a person's life. Items do represent pieces of your life. So as you look at an item or pick out an item, we're going to tell you what it represents and how we correlated that together.
So this is your quality circle, your choices you made regarding your life.
Myself and my family, we've been farming here now since '93. Hannah is our first daughter, our first child, and she struggles with, the Mayo Clinic calls it global developmental delay. Technically, it's mental retardation. She's 7, she can't walk, she can talk some. Some of the challenges, the daily things, dressing, eating, she can throw her food 5-6 feet, that's disturbing at times.
It's been a long road, a long struggle trying to meet with Hannah's demands. She's had lots of doctors, speech pathologists, physical therapists, and now we're taking another step in the journey with Hannah. We just found out she's having some neurological deficits according to her medical geneticist, so we've got to start another series of tests, another MRI, another EEG to check for seizure activity, and she's got to have a GI consult and things like that. So I tell my husband off and on that we need to go take a date once in a while. And with 6 kids, that's not real easy. It doesn't always happen, but it's needed. It's definitely needed. Those respite hours are coveted very much.
It is taxing on the family. I'd like to say it isn't, but it is taxing a lot on the family. Rebecca, a young gal that helps Hannah, she's wonderful, just very wonderful, and has been a huge help.
Hannah is very lovable. She loves to be around actually adults. She'd rather be around adults, and she's very happy most of the time. She's likes to play outside, and she loves to swing and go down the slide over and over and over. I've seen her do it 25 or 30 times in a row. And she loves to read, and she just likes to be around people.
When Rebecca started with her, she was in a walker. Now we've got her on a treadmill Monday through Friday. She walks a half hour and is increasing in her strength with that. She's starting to walk between a chair and our ottoman in our parlor area. She'll stand and she'll take 2 or 3 steps from one spot to the next. And her aide Rebecca she'll stand by her, but she'll let her do that. And she'll go back and forth and back and forth. And it's learning to get that balance, the balance in life.
We're trying to get her to, more independent living skills, to dress herself, brush her teeth, eat without throwing the Cheerios across the room.
The voice review was excellent to make sure that they were staying on task, and they were. They were professional in their delivery, and they still are. And they make appropriate suggestions where needed. There's an accountability. And if people aren't accountable to somebody else, they can have a tendency to slip.
Hey, we can't do the puzzle if we can't see it.
Some of Hannah's favorite things are riding on that John Deere Gator when the weather's nice. She likes to ride around the farm and just see things like anybody would.
Hannah just needs people who are willing to give her the time and the help to learn to do things herself.
The biggest misconception is money, that it costs way too much to do a voice review and it costs too much to do this process. In Region 10, we have a lot of volunteers that do these voice reviews. Although their time is important and it does cost something, that volunteer time is so valuable in this process that people actually are willing to do their own time to make somebody else's life great. So the misconception would be the dollar value that is on a voice review. It's invaluable to the person.
Critics of the voice review process have said that the Region 10 project is too expensive and time-consuming, offering the Cadillac of services when a Chevrolet would do.
The choice isn't about, do you want a Chevy or a Cadillac? The choice is, do you want some external person who's never met you before to come and check whether the people who are looking after you are living up to some abstractly defined standard, or whether you want people to come and spend time with you and figure out how your life is going and try to craft a message that focuses people's attention on what's really important to you. Those things seem to me to be different choices. You could argue that it makes no sense to spend public money on finding out how you'd like to live your life and trying to figure out how we align public investments and people's own willingness to be involved with people toward that end. We could say that, and I think we ought to say that really straightforwardly. If we believe that it isn't worth it, we ought to say, these people aren't worth that. We're perfectly happy with the alignment of our system right now, as long as it stays within the boundaries that are set by our minimum standards. That's all we care about. That would be honest, that would be clear. I think the Cadillacs and Chevys things is just a lazy way to avoid debate. It's a lazy way to avoid thinking. And thinking is tiresome, so we like to find ways to avoid it.
The challenge with Region 10 is that it really does require communities to mobilize. It's not easy. Like every revolutionary idea, it's hard, and it takes real leadership to do it. But real leadership inspires other leadership. And I know that there are going to be communities, not only in Minnesota, but all over the place, that begin to see that the quality of the lives of people with disabilities in those communities is really the responsibility of those communities.
While the Region 10 project expands in new directions across Minnesota, national audiences have been influenced by its person-centered approach to licensing and quality assurance.
John is an organic farmer. He knows excrement when he sees it. He's not at all shy about trying to clean it up.
We're an American tradition. We take it seriously where it says in the second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal if the freedom of one person is threatened, the freedom of all are threatened. And that's
what Region 10 really was looking to do was to sort of deconstruct the formal state and federal quality assurance structures that were in place. And with people with disabilities and family members and community members to really think about, well, if we were going to start from scratch, how would we think about quality? What do we value here in this geographic area about what happens for people, what positive outcomes we want for people, and let's try to find a way to sort of institutionalize that into a quality assurance system that doesn't make arbitrary distinctions between where people live. A lot of states are trying to get back to basics and trying to rethink the sort of regulatory structures that they put in place in the 70s and 80s. I guess I would say that the Region 10 people really broke through some barriers early on that made it possible, I think, for others around the country to do the same thing.
From my perspective on it, the biggest fear that I think we would have as a group is self-delusion. We do not want to develop another system that just becomes another system that people get attached to, that it generates its own bureaucracy, that carries on a life of its own and doesn't do what it's supposed to do. If I understand the Region 10 stakeholders at all, that is our biggest fear.
Because this is funded through a legislative appropriation and its lifespan is limited to 2-year increments, there have been people who've been hesitant to commit because they're not sure that they want to start something new that may not be permanent. We need to find a way to make this become a permanent licensing option throughout the state without being restricted to 2-year increments.
I'm a parent of a son who has Down syndrome. He's now living independently. He's got a nice home in a nice neighborhood in Red Wing, and he's got a nice job, and he's doing very well. He's an independent man with a lot of self-esteem and a lot of satisfaction in his life, and we feel very good about that. It's not always been true, though. In his earlier years, in different states around the country, there were no opportunities for him at all. Independent living was not a concept that really had developed well. When Andrew was born in 1966, it was suggested to us that we leave it in the hospital and they would take care of it for us. And from that, he has become a regular staff member on a crew that works and enjoys themselves. And he bowls and he does line dancing at the rodeo club, and he has dates, and he works hard for 5 days a week and takes the weekends off and tries to kick back. And he enjoys his life very much. Very much of that is because we moved to the state of Minnesota. When we moved here, my wife and I really planned to retire back to the Southwest from whence we came. We are not able to do that because we cannot go off half a continent away from Andrew and still feel comfortable about ourselves, although I'm sure that he would work just fine if we did that. So we are now clinging to him and enjoying that very much. Andrew is a man who enjoys everything that life has to offer him. He defines quality of life by interactions with individuals, by getting to know people, by going out and doing what's fun in life. Quality of life for Andrew is getting up and going to work on Monday morning. That is an excitement for him. At the age of 37, that is an excitement for him. How many of us can share that?
Before his voice review, Andrew didn't participate in meetings on his behalf and was assigned various programs to address his perceived needs. Today, Andrew runs his meetings. Programs that once monitored hand washing or toothbrushing have been abandoned, with the focus shifting to what Andrew cares about. He's now writing his resume, explaining to potential employers who he is as an individual.
Quality cannot be dictated at any level by anybody, because only an individual can establish his own quality. Andrew's quality of life is not something that we forced him to accept. It's not a quality of life that we created for him. It's what he himself defined for himself. And to the extent that he does not have full quality of life, it's probably not because he has not envisioned it, but because we have failed to deliver on that.
We have had numerous families come to us and say, this is the best thing that has ever happened to us. This is the first time I feel like people are listening to what's important and that we've been able to change some of the ways that services are provided.
When you encourage people to voice their own opinions, that's a wonderful thing. You get so much out of that.
I almost felt like the whole voice review was like an umbrella. I was seeing this whole picture of my daughter, and each little spoke. One spoke was work, and one spoke was her social activities, and one spoke was the supervisors that she has. And it was just wonderful to see this person that deep in my heart I knew, but it was other people also seeing those qualities in her.
I think the future of supports, the future really for all of us, is this sense of connectedness, a real sense of community, of working together, of breaking down those barriers that separate us, of learning how to appreciate each other's strengths and our wisdom and use it to benefit each other. I mean, there's an immense power in that.
In my work in state government, I've yet to come across anybody who isn't interested in improving the quality of services that are being provided. Nobody sets out to do a bad job. Nobody sets out to design a bad system. Understanding that everybody, and I think it's genuine, everybody truly does look toward and hope for finding successful ways of really advancing quality improvement. If we can harness that energy and focus it all in a common direction, we could do some really great things. We're not all going to agree 100% all the time, but as long as we're heading in the same direction, it's going to be hard to stop us.